Jordan Palmer here on the Rich Eisen Show. In the few minutes left, let's talk about Josh Allen because he's, your odds-on favorite for MVP, and you've been there since jump, man. And I just wonder how does his ascension change the way we evaluate kids coming out of college? Because I just remember the evaluation of him and now what he's done and where he is entering this season. And you're also seeing comparisons of stats with him and Daniel Jones. I saw that last night on the Giants preseason broadcast, and they're quite similar through the first 38 starts of his career and things of that nature. I'm just wondering if Josh Allen's going to start changing potentially the way that we evaluate quarterbacks, or he's just such a unicorn. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. Forever people have said things like, you can't coach accuracy. You can't go to the NFL where it's harder and get better and be a better pro than you were in college. And he's certainly not the only one who's done that, who's become a better pro than he was college player. But I've been hearing that a lot. And when coaches say that, I say, I believe you. I bet you can't. You help somebody get more accurate as they get older. But, he's already changing it. I've actually spent some time this offseason going around to different buildings, different NFL teams, and speaking to the scouting departments on that, kind of getting brought in to consult and talk with different scouting departments about how they have actually evaluate the position. And I just think that we've got to go back further. And so when you look at a Josh Allen and you go, where did it come from? You look for the staff, you look to the people who played a role, but he's a rare one that didn't grow up in an area where he had a bunch of elite level quarterback training like so many kids have right now. And so he kind of got introduced to a lot of the stuff that other kids, when they're younger, get introduced to at a much younger age. He didn't get introduced to it till really late. But then you add in the talent and the ability and his physical traits. And so I just think that to say somebody's not accurate, or I think he was 54% in college, and then write it off, I just think that's lazy. We need to do more research. And if somebody's had a lot of training and they've had great exposure and great experience and they're still 54%, then I think you can write that person off. But what I'm challenging people to do is dive deeper and go back earlier in the story and figure out why they believe what they believe or why they don't believe what they don't believe.
Well, I guess the question is how much better can he get, do you think, Jordan? What do you think?
Well, I think when you look at the guys who've been MVPs and done it, Aaron and Tom and Peyton and these guys who've done it, it was a full season, right? It was no bad games. It was complete. And Josh's highs are as high as we've seen, with his last game of the season last year. But they stubbed their toe and lost to Pittsburgh early. I was in Tennessee for the Monday night game when kind of missed really only missed one or two throws, but then they lose by 3. That affects the seeding, and so it's a complete year. They have to start week 1 the way that they finished last year. The great teams and the best players in this league do that, and that's my expectations for Josh this year.
So what's the expectation for the room? You and Kyle Allen, he's down in Houston, right? And you're just going to meet Zoom and get a guest every week? What's the plan here? Walk me through it.
Well, yeah, so the room, we think about like 30 minutes before a quarterback meeting starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in the NFL, you're in there. Like, what are the quarterbacks talking for that 20 or 30 minutes before the meeting starts? And a little bit of it's football. And when that part of football is really elite, like advanced conversations about football. You're talking about very interesting stuff. We talk about sports, other sports. You talk about fashion, you talk about music. So we've been talking about doing this, and I've got a lot of awesome guests lined up, essentially the biggest names in football, quarterback position, lined up for this year. And so Kyle and I, it's more like a PTI meets BFFs with Dave Portnoy. It'll live on YouTube. We'll cut things it'll be drips every single day. But we want the best quarterback from the biggest matchup that week. So Kenny Pickett, just because it's preseason, be joining us this week. Desmond Ridder was a guest last week. We'll get JT Daniels right before the Backyard Brawl. Josh Allen to kick off the season, and away we go all the way through this year. So we want to make the most fascinating conversation in football happening on our channel, and we're excited to do it and get some basically the biggest names in quarterback lined up for the season.
The neat part about that sounds great, man, and I will be checking it out, that's for sure. And the neat part about Josh is it strikes me as he's got the ability to hear all the expectation and shoulder it and just still be himself. I have zero concern that the expectation level is going to consume him. I don't have a single ounce of concern about that at all.
Yeah.
Jordan,
it's weird too, Rich. I haven't, you've known my brother a long time,
yep.
and we were friends a long time. And people made a big deal about Carson. Right? I've certainly seen people in his prime and all that ask for autographs and ask for pictures and all that stuff. It's a little different in Buffalo. I mean, they people say and write things like our savior. I mean, really, it's really important to that community in a way that I did not see in my time in the NFL. I never saw a player that important to a community, and whether it was Ocho Cinco in Cincinnati, Brandon Marshall in Chicago, Matt Forte in Chicago, I've never seen a community respond to this. So it's not just the winning expectations. It's like what he means to that community. And I just think I can name a ton, I won't, but a ton of quarterbacks that I've been around that are amazing players that I don't think could handle that. And I don't know what it is. He's just built to be able to handle it. And I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be too big a deal.